Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the exceptional one, Ken McClinton. You're listening to the Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital. We are not ashamed of the good news of conservatism, for it is the power of liberation. First to the Republican, then the Democrat. We are running a little late this evening, and we do apologize for the delay. I hate computers. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what we do when we start the show. Take off our hats, we put our right hand over our heart, and we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America. All right. That's what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Love to have the little children who are pledging allegiance to the United States of America. Put that hat back on. Yes, we are rocking the blueness this evening. Thank you, Dave. Mary, my bouncer, is in the chat roll tonight. If you diss Mary, you diss me, and you will be dismissed. That's just the way it works. It's always worked that way. Don't get offended. It's just the way it is. Also, want to thank Mrs. Biggs for being here tonight. Mrs. Biggs is watching via live stream, and Ustream. All right, so there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Big story tonight is what's happening in Baltimore. We'll be talking with Shannon Wright in just a few moments. Apparently, there are fears that rioting will break out because justice was served today. But I want to do one other quick story before we get started tonight, and I apologize for running late with everything. Apparently, my computer decided to do some things that were slightly different from what my expectations were, and if I didn't need it, I would probably fire it. So, but we still go on. No live stream. Live stream is what Ken was doing at his computer. That's right. I sure enough was doing a live stream at my computer. It's something about 9 p.m. And computers. Apparently, something's going on where they just decide that they're going to update and do their own thing right around 9 p.m. Okay. It's 9:10. Let me go ahead and take care of the call situation. Let us give a phone call out to the beautiful, the brilliant Shannon Wright from Baltimore, Maryland. She's going to bring us up to date on some of the things that are happening there. We will also talk about purpose this evening as part of our worldview studies. Make a phone call here. Okay. Good evening. Are we talking with Miss Shannon Wright?
Yes, we are. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. This is Ken McClinton, the exceptional one on the Exceptional Conservative Show. You are live, and we thank you so much for being with us tonight. Big news. Everything's coming out of Baltimore, apparently. And the news story of today was that William Porter, the officer who was the driver for the van in which Mr. Gray happened to be upon, is found, well, not really guilty nor not guilty. There was a hung jury. Can you give us more details on what's happening in Baltimore and how the Porter case bears some burden to that?
Well, this afternoon, the announcement was made that it was definitely a hung jury, and that the jurors were, after processing paperwork and all that sort of thing, going to be dismissed. Folks started clamoring and talking about it in the news. There was news coverage in media outlets from all over the place here in Baltimore. As time passed, more and more folks started coming out and heading down to the courthouse and then subsequently the city hall. And their concern was, it's a hung jury. What does that mean? Folks tend to get emotional behind an issue without understanding the process, legal purpose, and how things are done, all that sort of thing. So a lot of people were not aware that in the pretrial motions and the instructions given to the jurors, the decision had to be unanimous in order for there to be convictions on the different charges. And they were not able to achieve that. So it was considered a hung jury, regardless of what the actual breakdown of the votes were on each count. And people got upset,
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to be able to voice their concerns and their issues and protest and all sorts of things, and it was kind of like a circus atmosphere because all kinds of folks came out making all kinds of comments and statements. One of the statements that really, I think, disturbed me the most was from the Baltimore City NAACP president.
Yes.
And her quote, and I mean really word for word quote, "Protest Freddie Gray, just don't burn your neighborhood."
What?
Now, let's let that marinate for a minute.
What did she say?
She said, "Protest Freddie Gray, just don't burn your neighborhood."
But any old other neighborhood will do.
That is the inference or implication. That to me was just unacceptable. That is not how leadership should be motivating, inspiring, or even the kind of thoughts that should be given to the folks that look to them for leadership. That's not how you do that. So for the NAACP leader to really say and emphasize, "Protest Freddie Gray, just don't burn your neighborhood," was a bit much.
A bit much indeed. We're talking with Shannon Wright from Baltimore. She's a pastor out of Baltimore, Maryland. Also, she is the head of the Open Heart Closed Case campaign in Baltimore City. And we're talking tonight about the William Porter case, in which there was a hung jury today. And these are the charges that were on Officer Porter. Remind you, Officer Porter grew up in the gang-ridden areas of Baltimore, Maryland. He chose to be under the auspices or under the tutelage of police officers as a teenager. He grew up, he wanted to be a cop. He became a cop because he wanted to protect the citizenry of the neighborhood that he grew up in. But he found himself, thanks to Stallings Blake and Marilyn Mosby, facing these charges: involuntary manslaughter, second-degree assault, reckless endangerment, and misconduct in office. Now, apparently, of those 4 charges, the jurors, which was composed of 7 women and 3 men, and it was multiple diversity. It wasn't going to be stacked up on one side. They were hung. They could not find him guilty of any of those 4. Now, God bless this officer, because he was the driver. Why is this case so important to the other 5 cases to follow?
think that the order of the cases, the order of the trials was chosen in a way that they felt was the most beneficial. There's all sorts of speculation that had Officer Porter been convicted, then she would have turned state's evidence and been a witness for the prosecution, and the next trial due to start January 6th. But since that did not happen, now there is a hearing, which was up until an hour ago, as we all knew, a public hearing tomorrow at the courthouse to decide the retrial date, which now, in the last 15 minutes, notice has been put out that it is going to be a private meeting with the judge, the defense, and the prosecution.
Wow. Wow. Now, from your years of experience in the legal field and out of mine, I will, my summation is that they're only going to come back and say that they're not going to retry the guy. That's just my assumption. Because the hung jury itself, they risk having another hung jury and risk delaying all the other trials. And if there was another hung jury on this particular case for Mr. Porter, officer, or even if he was found not guilty in the next case, you might as well throw the other ones out the window, right?
Well, there's a lot of speculation on what that means. You know, there are some folks that say historically when a case goes to trial and the first trial is a hung jury and it's retried, that there is more of a precedence of there being a verdict, whether it is guilt or innocence. You know, that you'd have to look at the stats, but there is a high percentage of those cases that are retried coming in with a verdict.
Mm-hmm.
There are some folks that say that if it's retried, usually there is a guilty verdict. But, you know, that's even speculative. It depends on your perspective and what cases you pull and draw your inference from.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my humble opinion, State's Attorney Mosley, whatever, will attempt to retry the case.
Okay. Now, this is the criticism. The Daily Beast has released a criticism regarding her, and we are talking tonight with Shannon Wright from Baltimore, Maryland, who is following very closely what's happening in her city after the Porter case decision. And this is, listen, this is a, the Black Lives Matter people have been following from Trayvon Martin to Eric Brown, Eric Garner to Michael Brown, and now the Gray case. This was supposed to be, the Freddie Gray case was supposed to be the case that shows their influence and that, quite frankly, true justice only emanates in police officers being found guilty of crimes and misdemeanors. High crimes and misdemeanors, exactly. But tonight, Marilyn Mosby is under attack. Now, one of the criticisms about Marilyn Mosby is that instead of going slightly against these police officers, she got caught up in the emotions of Black Lives Matter. Your response, your thoughts on that particular assessment?
I think that she was definitely caught up in the emotion of everything going on here in Baltimore. You know, I had the chance to actually meet her and speak with her, and I honestly believe that her heart is in the right place. Just the actual steps that are taken are truly misguided.
Okay, let me just put it this way. You didn't say it, but the state's attorney that she replaced after the election said that she was not mature enough for the position. Is this loss today a recognition of his assessment and a revelation of her immaturity when it comes to understanding the practices of law?
Well, I will put it to you this way. Folks can tell you a lot of things. You can hear a lot of things. You can see a lot of things. You can read a lot of things. But sometimes we don't truly understand that till we feel it. And this may be one of those instances. Unfortunately, it is a very high profile and public way of learning a lesson. One that I hope will not be too costly, both financially for the city, for its residents, and for the business owners in Baltimore. You learn lessons, and if you're fortunate, you learn lessons, and there are things that you just don't, certain mistakes you don't make again.
Marilyn Mosby said this: I have heard your calls for no justice, no peace. However, your peace is sincerely needed as I work to deliver justice on behalf of Freddie Gray. However, behind the scenes, she was withholding key pieces of evidence from the defense, which may have led to the decisions that were made by this particular jury. If it is to be retried, is this the attorney general that it should be retried under at this particular point? And not that we have a lot of time to make that decision, but is today's case a significant revelation that seeking fairness by race only leads to persecution and justice?
Well, it's interesting that you should put it that way. And I like the way you lead towards, outcomes and conclusions there. This first trial was selected, in my opinion, to be able to muddle those waters and to be able to confuse the issue on race, because the Black Lives Matter groups and other groups are truly trying to make it a racial issue. However, if you are in a city where the gentleman that is no longer here was Black, and the officer being charged is Black, you kind of diffuse that whole racial argument, because are you saying that this happened to this gentleman because he was Black and we want to protect Black folks because Black folks' lives matter? Well, if Black folks' lives matter, then shouldn't the life of that officer matter that folks are seeking to prosecute and persecute?
Well, is he Black or is he blue? Is the question.
Well, you know the answer to that as well as
I do. So as long as he's blue, he's no longer a part thereof. The police officers that have been charged in the Freddie Gray case are Alicia Wright, who's a sergeant. She's Black. She joined the force in 2010 and was promoted to sergeant 3 months prior to Gray's death. Brian Rice, who is a lieutenant, age 41. He's white. He's a 17-year veteran on the force. William Porter, who is Black, the gentleman who was released today as a result of the hung jury. He's age 25. He joined the force back in 2012. Now, the others are Edward Nero, who is an officer, 29, white. He joined the police force in 2012. Garrett Miller, who is white, joined the police force in 2012. And Officer R. Goodson Jr., age 45, Black, 16-year veteran of the police force. I want to ask you, since there is a gag order on all of this, and charges for these individuals range from depraved heart murder, which is amazing. I mean that's like telling somebody they dropped a kid from the 18th floor of a building or something on purpose. Depraved. And so on, all the way down to misdemeanors. Forgive me, the manslaughter charges per se. If they're not misdemeanors, but it's a manslaughter charge. So these are severe charges. Doesn't Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake hold the key responsibility here for this particular trial? Isn't she the one who's responsible based on the promise that she was going to make certain that those officers were brought to justice?
Well, that's an interesting question. If you look at it from this purely and specifically emotional standpoint, you would say yes, because those were the words that she uttered out of her mouth. But if you look at it from a perspective of how the government actually works, the blame does not fall only on her. And I say that because one of the reasons why folks have such an issue with supporting politicians and getting involved in politics is it's believed that in the morning you may say one thing and in the evening you may say another, and the next morning you may do completely another thing unrelated to the first two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the expectation is that whatever comes out of one's mouth is whatever is most expedient and will garner the most sound bites picked up by the most media outlets. So a lot of times what's said is taken with a grain of salt.
Now, I have to ask you here. You know that Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, and she happens to share your gender. And we're talking tonight with Shannon Wright, who is in Baltimore. She's a pastor there. Shannon, Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake shares your gender. And she said that it would take a black woman to do something that black men could never do, and that was to bring the police to justice. Later on in this particular matter, in fact, earlier today, she threw someone under the bus. Can you tell me who that party was?
Well, in my opinion, she not only threw her under the bus, but took her to the station and put her under all the buses. And that would be our Baltimore State Attorney. The response was, it is not in my jurisdiction or my purview to be able to decide what happens now, all that sort of disclaimer and distancing yourself sort of rhetoric and talk. But you didn't hear that before. Before, it was, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. But here's the thing. When you have a mayor and you have a state's attorney and you have a high-profile case, you also have to look at the structure of how things are supposed to work. Now, in Baltimore, as with many other cities, there's a mayor, there's a state's attorney, there's a city council. And when the mayor does things in a manner in which does not reflect the views of the city, is not in the best interest of the city, seems to be specifically self-serving, there is a system of checks and balances for that particular purpose so that no one can become a dictator. And in Baltimore, part of the problem is we have an absent and sleeping city council president.
Mm-hmm. Whoa. So are you trying to say that peacekeeper, the one who got out in the middle of the street, has something to do with the outcome of the violence that's happening even as we speak?
Let's take it back a little bit. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
When the incident happened with Freddie Gray, and when anyone loses their life, it is a sad event. It is a sad thing.
Yes.
Regardless of how it may have happened, and if they caused it themselves, did something they shouldn't, whatever the outcome is, it is a life that God created that is no longer here. Okay? Yes. Now, with that being said, from the day that happened, steps have been put into place and things have happened that set in motion what happened in April and what is happening today. Mm-hmm. And here, one of the key steps, going back, you had our state's attorney who made her more emotion than intellect-based statements saying about how she would pursue justice for Freddie Gray, which is an understandable sentiment. It's just that when you are elected to certain positions and there are certain criteria that you have to meet to effectively do your job, emotion in that kind of a form and format cannot enter in. It has to be fact-based. Yes. The law is fact-based. And because of that, and because of the knowledge that human beings are emotional creatures, there are certain safeguards. Now, for example, when the incident happened and Freddie Gray lost his life, and the unrest, because, I'm trying to be politically correct right about that situation, when the unrest ensued in Baltimore, okay, to try and calm things down, state's attorney made her comments and tried to rush to what she perceived the public would feel or warm and fuzzy about was justice for Freddie Gray. Mm-hmm. Now, in doing that, the mayor then chimed in and said, hey, to help settle everything down, to help calm everything down, let's go ahead and pay the family. Let's settle the civil suit. Let's give them, I think it was $6.4 million. You know, when you get that high in numbers and counting, and the way that was done, my mind tries to blank it out. But I believe it was $6.4 million. Now, in order for that to happen, clearly the mayor had lost her mind.
Yeah.
Because she was making and authorizing and pushing for a settlement for a civil suit that had yet to be filed. Point number one. Now, clearly she had lost her senses and grasp and grip on reality. But then, knowing that that is sometimes a possibility is why when the mayor says these things that are completely off the wall, that follow no sort of jurisprudence, that follow no sort of precedent anywhere in this country, that is why you then have things like city council, city council president, and board of estimates. Now, in Baltimore, the city council and the board of estimates are headed by the same gentleman, our city council president. If you can see that your mayor is doing something that is, you can't even say left field, that is other planning in terms of setting legal precedents to the tune of millions of dollars, that is going to prejudice any jewelry pool, any, then it is incumbent upon you as also an elected official to put a check on that. But not only did that check not happen, the Baltimore City Council president, who is also the president of the Board of Estimates, approved the mayor's ridiculousness.
Now, we're talking $6 million here. We're talking to Baltimore pastor Shannon Wright. We're talking $6 million. There was a show once. There was a $6 million man. Apparently, Freddie Gray is that particular man. But this is couched, and I want to couch these remarks because Bernard Jack Young is the president of the Baltimore City Council. And yay, he should have questioned it. But was he not also one of the individuals that supported Mayor Stephanie Rawlins Blake's opinion to let people express themselves and violent opposition to the original facts regarding the Freddie Gray case? Wasn't he one of the cheerleaders for those who were protesting?
I don't know if I would say cheerleaders, but certainly efforts and comments seem to be misguided. Now, granted, today when the verdict or lack thereof came out, he did call for peace and for calm in the city and for an appreciation of the hard work on behalf of the jurors that, you know, endured this process. And that's pretty much kind of what you're supposed to say. However, it is very difficult to say that with a straight face, knowing that you signed off on.
There you go. Go ahead.
A lot of the pieces and the steps that got this city, this great and historic city, to the place it is right now.
So literally, the criminal case had not even come to trial. The criminal case wasn't even on paper just yet before the judge. And the city, under Mr. Young, who is the president of the Baltimore City Council, approved the $6.4 million payout, couched behind these comments by Mayor Stephanie Rawlins Blake. She said that there was no place in the Baltimore Police Department for those police officers who choose to engage in violence, brutality, and racism. Apparently, the city had already decided in the court of public opinion that not only was Mr. Porter guilty, but Mr. Rice, Lieutenant Brian Rice, is guilty. Lieutenant Alicia White is guilty. Officers Garrett Miller and Edward Nero are guilty. Officer Cesar Goodson, guilty. They've already made that determination and proclamation. So, how just is justice in Baltimore by that standard?
By that standard, it's already preconceived in terms of what the outcome should be, and then working on that assumption, which I think that I have never seen before. And it's kind of like deciding that there is some place where it's legal for you to make a left on red.
Yeah.
Because it is completely out of left field. It's not done anywhere. It's dangerous to do, and you can cause harm to yourself and other people, just like deciding that you're going to make a left on red.
So, listen, who are you closer to in opinion regarding this particular case? And I know I'm not asking you to deign judgment. We're talking with Shannon Wright from Baltimore, Maryland, who is a pastor and a community activist. I would say that not an organizer, but an activist. But who are you closer to in terms of the opinion regarding this particular case? Are you closer to Gene Ryan, who's the president of the Baltimore Police Union, who said that the situation is tragic. However, none of the officers involved are responsible for the death of Mr. Gray? Or are you closer to Marilyn Mosby, who says that she would be the one who put the nail in the coffin and prove that these 6 are directly, and I do say directly, responsible for the death of Mr. Freddie Gray?
Well, I certainly won't pick the latter one.
But
on several levels, that is just wrong. Number one, in man's law, innocent until proven guilty. In God's law, judge not lest you be judged. So when you look at either one of those, that does not leave a place for C, me deciding that I agree with her and they're all guilty. So I would have to say that would not be my choice.
No.
It is very difficult for anyone to have faith in a political process where you say innocent until proven guilty, yet act as if guilt has already been established, and then proceed upon that as if there's nothing wrong. That, to me, does not even set the stage for there to be any form of justice or fairness or any of those kind of things in any way, shape, or form, and merely sets to set the foundation and the stage for more civil unrest, for more violence. This afternoon, shortly after the verdict came out, there was a young man that got beat down and arrested. He was 16 years old. 16 years old. Young man, also a high school student, who, because of today's aging technology, you could see before he was arrested, not doing anything but speaking, was also arrested. Now, it seems to me it's just taking time and energy that folks want to put in to misguide and misinform on how our judicial system actually works and what their actual rights are for civil arrest and civil disobedience, what their rights are. Instead, you want to put out misinformation that simply just inflames an already inflammatory situation. And to me, that's not what folks are elected for.
Now, I want to go to one other quick topic with you, and then I want to broach. And I know you have stayed on the line longer with me than we expected, but this is a very serious issue for Baltimore, and there is a definite need for change in Baltimore. And William Porter was going to be in the days of Jim Crow, they would just lynch a brother to send a message. Hey, it happens to be Saturday night. Let's find one and let's send a message. Porter was going to be that message to the good people of Baltimore. But one of the doctors that testified on behalf of Porter basically advised that, unfortunately, by the description and observations given by the Baltimore examiner, city examiner, there is no doggone way that Mr. Porter, Officer Porter, was responsible for the murder. And I do use murder, might as well say it. You know, if you say manslaughter, it's just a cute way of saying murder. Was not responsible for the murder of Freddie Gray. And he went through an exhaustive expose as to why scientifically it was improbable for that to have been his responsibility. Based on that defense alone, doesn't that screw up everybody else's challenge of the other individuals involved with this particular case?
Of course it does. But I suspect that that was, you know, a plan B from the beginning.
Wow. Now, there are issues with Baltimore. There have been issues with Baltimore. The last time there was a Republican mayor of Baltimore, he later.
Before I was born.
It was before you were born. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you are a young woman indeed. So it was much, much earlier than your birth. I was probably there with Jesus, so you know I was probably there. But it's been a while since there's been a Republican mayor. In fact, one of the Nancy Pelosi's father was the mayor of Baltimore for a while. So it just tells you how liberal Baltimore is. Yet there are some other issues. There are over 325 murders in Baltimore this year. The majority of those murders take place in very impoverished areas. The only CVS in a certain neighborhood was burned down, and many people are reporting drug overdoses in that particular community because people came in and took whatever drugs were there and sold them on the street. You have a very high unemployment rate. You have exactly. You have very little capital and investment in certain areas of that particular community. Bernard Jack Young could probably tell you all about that because it's been that way since the original riots of the 1960s in Baltimore. Nothing's changed. What's wrong?
You're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that. I'm not sure what's wrong. I mean, there's obviously multiple things wrong, but I can tell you what needs to be right. We need to clean house in Baltimore. We need to clean house in Baltimore. I am very pleased that our current mayor has decided not to run again, which gives a chance for a new mayor. And hopefully, with a new perspective to bring new insight to the city. Because clearly the perspective and insight that's here is not working. But it needs to go further than that. We need a new comptroller. We need a new city council president. And I say, again, back to the city council president, because in most things, there's a system of checks and balances. If the mayor is off the rails, then it's up to you to rein him in. And if you're not doing it, then you too are asleep at the wheel and part of the problem, not the solution. And doing some research today, because I was really curious to see how bad and in how many areas it was bad, the situations here in Baltimore. And I saw where the mayor commented on, well, let me go back, where Governor Hogan commented on the crime in Baltimore and the murder rate in Baltimore, and how he didn't understand how it was the way it was. Now, there's no love lost between Governor Hogan and Mayor Rollins Blake, clearly. But the governor had a point. What is going on? That's number one. So the mayor then responds back, you know, to understand. Oh, the governor made a comment about he didn't understand why there wasn't more outrage in the community about the 300 plus homicides in the city. And the mayor's response wasn't, you're absolutely right. It wasn't because we are handling that and we are reaching out to the community and we are involving the community to turn this tide around. It wasn't, you are right, and we've added X amount more detectives, and we've increased police presence. It wasn't any of that. It was, you can't judge community outrage when you're only in the community for a quick photo op passing through.
Wow.
Now, see, to me, that's not the way you handle things. That's not the way a city elected official should act. But then, I did a little bit more research, and I came across City Council President Bernard C. Jack Young, President, City of Baltimore, on one of the Baltimore website pages.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up the legislative calendar because I found out that, City Council President heads the Board of Estimates. And the Board of Estimates in Baltimore consists of 5 voting members: the mayor, the president of the city council, the comptroller, the city solicitor, and the director of public works. Now, according to the city's website, the president of the city council serves as president of the Board of Estimates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I looked things up because I was a little confused about some of the things that I was reading and seeing. And I wanted to see how badly off things really were in Baltimore. I mean, you know that there are 300 plus murders in this city this year alone, and the year's not quite done yet.
Yep.
So I looked at that, and I did some other research, some of the things and some of the votes that had come through the Board of Estimates and through the mayor and things like that. And I noticed an article today that talks about how the city of Baltimore to loan Amazon $100,000 to help shuttle employees to work. Now, you may think this is completely unrelated to what we're talking about today. But here is the thing. I'm going to read to you the first 2 sentences of this article. Baltimore officials, and this article came out yesterday.
Yeah.
Baltimore officials are proposing a $100,000 forgivable loan to shipping giant Amazon to help compensate for the company's running its own shuttle to pick up employees. The Board of Estimates, which is controlled by Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, is expected to approve the deal Wednesday.
Wow.
Now, you may see, clearly everyone is going to see whatever it is they see as wrong with that. The fact that you have a situation where you bring in, jobs, you bring in business, you bring in something that boosts the economy of the area, and you bring in a large corporation like Amazon, it's awesome, it's wonderful. And there was, I'm sure, many different facets and steps and parts and moving pieces to the deal of getting them to come to Baltimore. But now, when you see Baltimore officials are proposing a $100,000 forgivable loan to shipping giant Amazon to help compensate for the company's running its own shuttles. Now, let's begin. One, on a side note, the reason why they're running their own shuttle is because the Baltimore transportation system here in the city is abysmal. And the governor has acknowledged that the system is abysmal. And for that reason, has called for a transformative plan to be able to fix it. And according to Mayor Blake, we feel badly for the fact that transportation is really run in other areas of the city and not really to and from the areas where the employees live and where the company is located. Now that's somewhat kind of logic, okay, in there somewhere. Then further in this article, and bear with me because there's a reason why I'm sharing this.
Mm-hmm.
As this article goes on to say, the city and the state helped lure Amazon Baltimore through more than $40 million incentive packages. For the loans included in that package to be forgiven, the company must employ at least 1,000 people for 10 years and invest $175 million here in Baltimore. Now, just remember some of those numbers. $40 million incentive package they were given. For loans included in the package, they must employ 1,000 people and they must spend $175 million here. Now, they were getting 40 in incentives. They have to spend 175, so you're looking at 135 for the city. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Then it says City Council President Bernard C. Jack Young, who sits on the Board of Estimates, supports the deal, said his spokesman, Lester Davis. He's happy about the job, said Davis. We have a lot of people who are qualified and want to work. We want to help them get access to jobs. This is pro-family, pro-Baltimore City. Now, here's where the problems come in, as if there weren't already enough. You got a city that is going through these trials, that is under chaos, that is under confusion, and now you add to it this article, which is a case in point as to why Baltimore is so backwards, why the unemployment rate is so high. It seems to me, instead of loaning Amazon.com, one of the largest corporations in the country, $100,000 or however the amount was, to be able to reimburse them for paying for their employees to get to work, that you would put that money, you might offer them a few more incentives above that $40 million you've already offered them, but you might take that money and actually invest it in the infrastructure of the city so that you would not have to forgive a loan to a corporation that is able to more than afford to not have that loan forgiven, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Then, I want you to understand, City Council Jack sits on the Board of Estimates supports the deal. At the beginning of the article, the second sentence I read to you, which is the Board of Estimates, which is controlled by Mayor Stephanie Rawlins Blake. Now, this is a memory test. Do you can remember what I just read to you before that article from the city's charter and the Baltimore City Board of Estimates? I will read it again.
Thank you.
I vote as a mayor, the city council president, the controller, and the city solicitor, and the director of public works.
Okay.
The president of the city council serves as president of the Board of Estimates. Hear me now.
Mm-hmm.
The president of the city council serves as Board of Estimates. That's what the city charter says.
Mm-hmm. So in the end, it is the city council president who's responsible for the stewardship of the city's financial well-being, and that the mayor is subject to the authority, the moral responsibility, and accountability of the citizenry, led by the city council president. So this goes to say, on this particular note, at the end of this fiscal year, Mayor Stephanie Rawlins Blake announced that she predicted a shortfall, a budget shortfall of $75 million. Wow. Now,
yes.
Who knew that deficit was going to happen before Mayor, or at least at the same time as Mayor Stephanie Rawlins Blake?
I would say the president of the Board of Estimates, also known as City Council President. But here's the thing. In the article that I read, written by the Baltimore Sun, or published by the Baltimore Sun, the Board of Estimates, which is controlled by Mayor Stephanie Rawlins Blake. Because it is clear, not only from the perception of people that are observant in the city, but the media, everyone's perception is realizing that she is the mayor and she should be a part of the Board of Estimates, but she runs the Board of Estimates. Why is that? Because the city council president, who is also the president of the Board of Estimates, does not. He is not fulfilling the charter and his mission mandate.
So
and that is part of why Baltimore is running amok the way it is.
So,
and that's just one example.
And we've talked today about public safety and about the murder situation and the city and the trial of Mr. Porter, the Officer Porter. We just finished a conversation about the budget, in which the city is announcing that they're expecting, even before riots, they are expecting a slowdown in revenue generating income, and as well higher costs for pension benefits and prescription drugs, along with body cameras for police and new trash cans and things of that nature. You know, things that make the place look pretty. So
exactly. So there's the hotel that you own and not making any money at, and other things that they want to.
So here's the question: What is the correlation between public safety? Very quickly, between public safety and budget.
Well, the correlation is that you're not I can't even say that the budget is not where it should be for public safety, but I can say that there are several areas where it's clear that the budget is being misappropriated, that spending is not being done appropriately, and that more than one folk is asleep at the wheel.
There you go.
And I'm going to.
And I just want to do this very quickly because we're going to come to a hard break. Where people don't feel safe, they don't worship, they don't spend money, they don't invest, they don't live, and they certainly don't stay and work. That depletes the revenue, which creates the shortfall in the first place. Those people who are not good stewards over the public safety certainly will never be great stewards over the financial wherewithal. What are you going to really do about this? We can talk, and you know, you and I can get into the weeds regarding policy and stuff. But what exactly are you going to do about this scenario and this situation?
Funny you should ask that, as if you weren't leading me to it.
It's just my job.
Well, I believe that I've been lucky in Baltimore for a specific reason, because Baltimore is not alone in its issues. It is one of many of our urban centers across this country that is facing similar issues, like Ferguson, like Chicago, with things that are going on there, things that have happened in New York, in D.C., where you are, Ken. And the only way for this to change is for folks that are concerned and talk a lot about it to actually step up and do something about it. And for that reason, after many hours of conference with folks closest to me, I have decided that I am looking at, let me try to be politically correct.
There you go.
I am looking at running for office for city council president here in Baltimore.
There you go. There you go. This is what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It takes people like you to step out there on faith and make a change. So you've started your exploratory committee, and who's on your exploratory committee?
Well, funny you should ask that, because you're one of the people that's on the committee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. That's how you do it. You do it publicly, right there. What do you say after that? Nothing.
Well, nothing. No, there is something you said, and we'll be back after this.
Yeah, we'll be right back. and who else is on your committee?
There's another gentleman by the name of Ralph CHITTAMS, who is an awesome man out of D.C., who I am honored to say is going to be very active in shepherding and leading this campaign.
I want to thank you so much for spending the 50 minutes with us on this program, twice as long as I expected you to, but certainly 4 times more effectual in terms of developing a strategy for Baltimore. We'll have you back on over the coming months as you begin your campaign. And in all transparency, yes, I am on her exploratory committee as a co-chairman. So with that said and that done, I want to thank you so much for coming on, because following you, we're going to release the KRAKEN tonight. Yes, D.C. Vice Chairman GOP, Ralph CHITTAMS Sr., who should be a doctor, so we can call him doctor. Well, he'll be back up at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much, Shannon. God bless you, and we'll be talking to you very soon.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, we certainly will be back with more of the best in urban conservative talk. We will be talking with none other than our very good friend Ralph CHITTAMS right after these messages.
She just twisted her into a heart. Oh, you stole mine. Right. don't look like my sister. It does. But I know she's not.
He's cuddling a kitten. God, I'm gonna eat their faces.
Oh, she's hot.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's a lollipop. Oh, that is not a lollipop. Left swipe.
Left side.
Let's swipe that. You gotta swipe it left. Yeah. You gotta swipe it left. Let's swipe that. You gotta swipe it left. Let's swipe that. Look at you with your shirt off, flexing. You're buff, but you puff. Hashtag complexing. Yeah, you worked out, you're in shape. Okay, I like the 6-pack abs, not the 6 packs a day.
Came across a photo of this green-eyed hottie. Home on, pretty face, tight waist, nice body. But I just couldn't overlook one small fact. She smokes like an old man at a racetrack.
And I'm not tight. If you do it, it's I just left swipe. I just left swipe. Let's swipe that. You gotta swipe it left. Yeah. You gotta swipe it left. Let's swipe that. You gotta swipe it left. This is stuff I don't like, so I gotta let's swipe that.
Mr. World Traveler, your trips look expensive. Sitting on a mountaintop looking all offensive. I was about to ask, how's the air up there? But based on this pic, I guess you don't really care.
Lots of chicks in the pic, not sure which one's you. Them cigarettes are taking y'all from tens to twos. And one thing's true about your whole crew. None of you cigarella's gonna be my boo.
Smoking with a tiger?
Let's swipe that.
While you're on a hang glider?
Let's swipe that.
Smoking while acting healthy.
Let's swipe that.
Smoking all stealthy?
Let's swipe that.
Smoking with a duck face.
Let's swipe that.
At a mustard truck race?
Let's swipe that.
Smoking at the prom.
Let's swipe that.
Even in a photo bomb?
He don't care.
Let's swipe that. You gotta swipe it left. Yeah. You gotta swipe it left. Let's swipe that. You gotta swipe it left. This is stuff I don't like, so I gotta let's swipe that. You gotta swipe it left.
Yeah. Hashtag.
I'll never remember you.
Chef of Infused Restaurant. Hi, my name is Christopher Arnold. I'm the executive chef of Infused Restaurant. And today I'm going to walk you through some of the meals that we prepare here. We're making a pizza. We use French Italian sausage that they cook here and slice it up. Our pizza dough is in-house made. Our pizza sauce is in-house made. So everything is fresh and ingredients. This is our Thai curry chicken. The sauce is made with coconut milk and a Thai red curry. It is juicy chicken thighs as well as some mixed vegetables, served with jasmine rice and pita bread. So now we're going to prepare our famous blackened tilapia and grits, our fish and grits on the menu. And our meal will be complete. Let me tell you about our infused beef burgers. We keep the spice up just a little bit with our infused sauce. We start off with 80-20 USDA ground chuck ham patty burgers, nice half a pound of burgers, and we're going to grill it to perfection. After I flip the burger, we add the sauce and let it cook on it until it really gets a little bit. We're going to add a little bit of pepper jack cheese to this burger, spice it up a bit. Order up!
Ladies and gentlemen, order up now. Get it done, get her done. 6339 Allentown Road, Temple Hills, Maryland, 207-48-301-449-9000. Infuse.com. Yes, we're running a little behind schedule tonight, thanks to my computer. But you know what we do when we start off the 10 o'clock hour. As every hour on the Exceptional Conservative Show, we take off our hats. We put our hand over our right hand over our right heart, because we got a right and left heart, right? Yeah, there you go. Over our one heart. And we say the Pledge of Allegiance. We do. We really do. We do say the Pledge of Allegiance. This is how stuff works, people. I just want to let you all know.
Shake your parents. Ready, begin. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last hour of the Exceptional Conservative Show for Wednesday night, Sackheads Radio Night, SHR Media Night, that is. You can go into the chat roll at theexceptionalconservativeshow.com, SHR Media Live, where we are not ashamed of the good news of conservatism, for it is the power of liberation, first to the Republican and then the Socialist. Mary Brockman's in the chat room. She is my bouncer. If you diss her, you diss me, you will be dismissed. Dave is also Dave Milner is also in the chat roll. He is the unpleasant blind guy. We love him dearly. We are about to release the KRAKEN, Ralph J. Chittams, and we also want to give mad love to Mrs. Biggs on Ustream and Livestream. Thanks for ordering up tonight's show. Okay, all right, here we go. If it's going to not work tonight, it's not going to work tonight. There we go. We are releasing the KRAKEN. One ringy dingy. Two ringy dingies.
Good evening.
Good evening. It is Ralph Chittams, who we would love to call Doctor one day, and we're encouraging him to go back. And, he's the DC Vice Chairman of the GOP. Good evening, sir. It's a pleasure to have you on the air with us as we release the KRAKEN for the evening.
Always a pleasure. How are you this evening?
I am feeling great, feeling real good, man. First and foremost, this is just chump change conversation, but how do you feel about the DC government finally getting that $200 million train to go 3 blocks on 8th Street? Isn't that amazing?
Well, I've said it before. What they should have just done is they should have installed some wooden horses, played some music, and then they could really charge people to ride the merry-go-round. You know, at least then they could have made $250 a pop.
We are laughing because DC has finally got the train up and moving. Well, they don't carry any passengers, but it does move. So I guess that's a start. $200 million down the drain. Amazing. Simply amazing.
Absolutely.
Listen, big story of the day, and I want your comments on this. I've been talking with your protege from just a little bit ago, Shannon Wright, who owes everything to her electoral success to you. And if she has electoral...
No.
If she has electoral failure, it's her fault. So
no, I take no credit. I try to help good people who are trying to do good things that I believe in, and I stand with them when they win, and I stand with them if they don't win.
Exactly.
You know me.
Yeah, I know you.
That's how I roll.
Exactly. But this is what you've been talking about. That's why one of the reasons I've had you come on is that there are individuals out there in America that just want your kind of boost to them to make that step and run for office in urban America, especially, but certainly in other offices around the country. Your thoughts and expressions regarding knowing that someone listened to you.
Well, it's good to see that there are, Black conservatives in urban America who are stepping up to the plate all over the country. We had Eddie Sipland in Akron who ran a fabulous campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that, if Shannon ultimately decides that she's going to run, she is going to be a wonderful candidate and would be an exceptional president on the Baltimore City Council. But it is good that finally what we're seeing in this country are Black conservatives in America's inner city coming together to form synergies to try to propel us into elected office in our own communities. It's way overdue and it's past time.
Well, congratulations to you, sir. You have been effectual in coming on to this particular program and encouraging so many people to make decisions that they ordinarily, and you know these people, you talk with them, I talk with them, they wouldn't dare get off their couch. They would complain, they see the problems, but they wouldn't dare because fearful of the ideological nincompoops who have basically held power for 4 or 5 decades in urban America.
But there is a shifting in the winds,
Mm-hmm.
and urban America is finally waking up to the fact that the Democrat Party has done absolutely nothing for them for 3 generations except promote a society of dependency and poverty, and it has absolutely destroyed the greatest American cities on the face of the earth. And it's sad that it took 60 years for people to figure it out, but people are finally waking up to that reality, and many of them are at least open now to the opportunity that, we might need to give these Republicans a shot, because they certainly couldn't do any worse than what these Democrats have done to us for the past 60 years.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to give you this one. I normally let you do it at the very end of the show, but apparently it's successful enough that people are willing to jump out there, and we're coming up on timelines for people to file to run for office. Some in January, February, March of this year. How can urban conservatives and others get in contact with you, sir, about considering a run?
I'm all over social media: Facebook, Twitter, RJ Chittam Sr., RJCHITTAMSSR, and they can always reach out to me through my email account, which is ralph.chittams@dcgop.com. But also we need to also not have people running for these elected offices. We need to get conservatives, period, across the country running to be delegates for the RNC convention in Cleveland. We need to overrun that convention with constitutional conservatives, because I truly believe that we are not going to have anyone win on that first ballot. And after that first ballot, delegates start being released to vote their conscience. And after the third round of balloting, every delegate at the convention is released to vote his or her conscience. So the more constitutional conservatives that we have in attendance in Cleveland, the better chance that we will have of having a constitutionalist be our party standard bearer at the general election.
Now, going to the subject of Baltimore, since we're on urban cities, the knuckleheads who don't even live in Baltimore have decided to arrive en masse to start the burning of the city. Some of them are marching to the Inner Harbor. Hogan and his police forces are holding individuals back off of the central city and pushing them back towards whence they came. All of this because justice was served today with a hung jury. Your commentary, sir.
Well, the jurors heard the evidence that was presented. They deliberated. They couldn't come to a unanimous verdict. That's our judicial system. The city now has to decide if they want to retry the case. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. But, no one is ever guaranteed a result at the
What?
beginning of a trial.
What?
That's why you have a trial.
What? Are you sure?
And I wasn't in the jury box. I wasn't in the courtroom every day. I didn't hear all the evidence that was presented. I didn't hear the arguments. So I can't sit from the comfort of my home in Washington, D.C. and second guess what the jurors decided. They decided, that's our system. We accept it. You don't like it, go out and vote and get some people out of office.
There you go. Now, there was supposed to be a guaranteed outcome. Ralph, they burnt down Baltimore. They were supposed, according to Marilyn Mosby, and according to Mayor Stephanie Robbins Blake, they were supposed to hang Officer Porter, or at least offer him hanging in exchange for a sweetheart deal where he turns on his own other 5 officers there. It's supposed to have worked out that way. Are you trying to say that justice is not fair?
Well, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. So there's a concept that people need to understand. Justice isn't about what you know. Justice is about what you can prove.
There you go.
And they clearly didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt to the satisfaction of at least one member of that jury that this officer was guilty of everything with which he had been charged. That's our system. Now, they're going to be mad because this police officer wasn't convicted, but I bet you those same Negroes were running around Baltimore laughing and cheering and yucking it up when OJ walked.
There you go. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We're talking tonight with the KRAKEN himself. We have released him to the world. Yes, Ralph CHITTAMS Sr., who is the D.C. chairman of the GOP. D.C. vice chairman. I'm sorry, I'm speaking things into existence. D.C. vice chairman of the GOP. Now, finally, on this particular matter, then I want to switch to the debate from yesterday. But Marilyn Mosby, in all seriousness, this is a very serious question here. The attorney, the Maryland State Attorney that she replaced during the election last year, made note of the fact that she had not ever tried a murder case in her entire existence. That she did not have anything beyond a civil law background, and that she would not be able to do well. She did not have the legal maturity to handle big time cases like it unto the one that was handed to her in Freddie Gray. On this particular question, did she fail the public on this particular case by presenting such overreach? And secondly, should she resign or the people of Baltimore get rid of her?
Well, I can't say that she overreached. Again, I wasn't sitting in the room. I didn't hear all the evidence. But clearly, it can clearly be stated that she was put into that position due to affinity politics.
Mm-hmm.
She's not qualified for the job. They needed a black. They got a woman. And she's what you call the old-fashioned twofer.
Only on this show do you get the truth, baby. Only on this show do you get the truth. We got a twofer.
They got a twofer. They got a woman and they got a minority. So,
man,
how do you put someone in that position who has absolutely minimal trial experience?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the problem with affinity politics, because people are put in positions not because of competencies, but because of emotional reasons.
Exactly. Now, I want to switch to, because we'll know tomorrow whether they're going to retry the case. I pray they don't retry the case and they just let this thing go at this particular juncture. But
I believe that they will retry the case, because at this point, this case now has nothing to do with justice. It's now about saving face and public relations.
Wow.
So my prediction is that they are going to retry this case.
You know, millions of dollars of public money is being spent on this false accusational lynching of these officers. And it's simply because of race. It's simply because of Black Lives Matter. It's simply because two women stood up and said that they were going to control the strings of justice, or the scales of justice, and actually they came up with zero today. It's amazing.
What they were trying, what they honestly were trying to control were the streets.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing emotional politics with the Black community and with those who feel disenfranchised in the Black community by basically, on the one hand, buying off the family, saying, if we give you some money, will you promise you'll try to keep your friends out of the streets and not riot? And then on the flip side, saying to the rest of the community, we guarantee you that we're going to go after these cops like nobody else did, so please don't loot and burn down our city.
Wow. Wow.
It has nothing to do with justice.
It is sad. It is sad. And remember, 40 years ago, their parents marched with Martin Luther King and with so many other civil rights leaders. And what was their claim? They wanted justice. And now those same people are misapplying the scales of justice to get their ideological racial point across. Speaking of ideological, well, yeah, let's go with Jeb Bush here. Apparently, some people on MSNBC believe that Jeb Bush won last night's primary, and that he was able to take on the Donald and call him a chaos candidate. You, sir, what say you regarding Jeb Bush versus the Donald, and who won last night's debate?
Yeah, well, you know me, I don't get into who wins these debates because that's a useless argument. Because anytime you put Donald Trump on a stage with anybody, he's going to suck all the air out of the room to the point where winning and losing almost becomes a non-starter. But here's the question I would have for those who claim that Jeb Bush won the debate last night. When somebody wins a debate, typically that person gets a bump within 24 hours after the debate in the polling. Here's the question. Has there been a bump for Jeb Bush in the past 24 hours? The answer to that question is no. Clearly, Jeb did not win.
Yep.
Period. End of discussion.
Exactly. I concur with you regarding that.
And if you want to hit, and what's really stupid, John McCain has proven that he needs to take his little self and go straight into retirement for claiming that of all the performances last night, Lindsey Graham was the overall winner. So if that is not clear and present evidence that John McCain has gone completely off the deep end into Alzheimer and dementia zone, the folks in Arizona need to get him out of office before he hurts himself, because he is a clear and present danger, not only to himself, but to others.
There you go. Oh, man. We also want to thank Pastor Shannon Wright, who has come into the chat role at the exceptionalconservatorshow.com. I'm quite certain to give you adulation for being her chairperson for her campaign. Because what could she do without you?
She can do everything.
I'm just teasing Shannon. I really am. She's a genius. She really is. But in last night's debate, Ted Cruz made an error. Not of quality of his presentation. He seemed presidential. And actually, if we were doing the who won it, I would think that Ted Cruz, who did get a bump today, would be one of those individuals. But he announced that the Patriot Act wasn't as strong as the NSA Spying Act, which allows the NSA to spy on 100% of Americans at any time that they feel. That was a release of national security classified information. Your thoughts, sir? Is that a disqualifier for the quality of presidential leadership?
No, because what happens with these debates is, these politicians are like preachers. You know, you put either one in front of a microphone and God help you what comes out of their mouth. So no. You know, did he say something that potentially it's possible, but that's something that's currently being investigated. And from what I read, what he said really wouldn't amount to much.
Yeah.
Because what he said was clearly already common knowledge among anyone who has spent any time either in the intelligence community or spent any time reading secrets.
Now, I want to ask you here, Rubio, is he desperate or is he presidential? I think desperate. You, sir, tell me.
He's clearly desperate for attention.
Yeah.
And if you want just my humble opinion, one man's humble opinion, I think he needs a few more years of seasoning before he's ready for the White House.
Last night,
that's just my opinion.
I concur with you. This is a great practice, and I am enjoying you taking the swings and batting practice with spring season. That will end, and you can go back to the Senate. Or can he go back to the Senate? I think this is it for him.
Well, hasn't he said that he wasn't going back?
That's what he said. Yes, he did. Now, that's a good question. Will he go back? Will he go back?
See, what people don't understand is the Senate is a very arcane institution. And one person is not going to go into the Senate and accomplish anything, because that was the way the framers, built the Senate, so that one person couldn't go in there and just run amok. So, whether you're an ideologue on the right or a demagogue on the left, you're not going to go into the Senate and upset and upstage that institution. And I think a lot of people get into the Senate and they think that they're going to do just that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm sorry. No, you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the structure just doesn't allow you to do it. And people get frustrated and mad because they can't do what they thought they were going to do. Well, here's my question. Why didn't you research the position before you ran?
Research? What, are you kidding me? Hey, that's work. I'm putting on the screen for everybody's attention. This is what I received earlier this week, and I want to thank the Ben Carson campaign. This is a lithograph. And you know what? I really love the Ben Carson group. They got it signed for me and everything. That's beautiful. I really appreciate it. Ben signed it himself. He said, "Dear Kenneth, you are an inspiration to me, a true patriot, and a shining example of the best America has to offer. Thank you, and God bless you." I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I will be hanging this up in my office. And I wish he had dated it or numbered it. And that way it would sell later on eBay. But... no, I'm going to put that up. I'm going to put that up in my office. So, you are a great supporter of Ben Carson. Ben Carson was asked, doctor, and you should be named doctor too. But anyway, Dr. Ben Carson was asked last night, does he have the resolve, I'm paraphrasing, to cause collateral damage, killing thousands of babies and murdering them as a result of carrying out his foreign policy. No one else was asked that question, I don't believe. I think Ben Carson had two questions, and one of them was, are you a doctor? Was Ben Carson handled fairly?
That's typical. They're always And then, I forget the guy's name, shows you how much I really think of him. The world's foremost pediatric neurosurgeon, and he's going to say, oh, he's a pediatrician. I was like, come on.
It's close enough, isn't it? Same hospital. Oh, it's just like being an OB-GYN. There you go.
But that question that they asked him about the collateral damage, look, we need to understand something. War is dirty business.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a war where innocent people don't die.
Thank you.
Any commander-in-chief understands very clearly that when he decides to pull the trigger on our military and send them into a conflict, innocent people are going to die. And I like how Dr. Carson answered the question. He said, before he makes a decision, he asks 4 questions. What's the best thing that can happen if I do this? What's the worst thing that can happen if I do this? What's the best thing that can happen if I don't do this? And what's the worst thing that can happen if I don't do this? And based upon that analysis, he determines what action to take. Well, I think that's a very reasonable and sound methodology for a commander-in-chief to use when determining whether or not to deploy our troops into a war zone. And so I thought his answer was brilliant.
Now, he also, cuffing that particular response, made reference to the fact that before he went into surgery, he had to think through all of the possibilities and then express those possibilities to a child who didn't like him, but gosh darn it, would choose to do whatever the doctor asked him to do because it seemed wise and reasonable. But in all honesty, he's a nice guy. And I get messages from people like Lee Anderson on Facebook who say that nice guys finish last. Is Ben Carson going to finish last? Is he only a vice presidential candidate by now?
No, I don't believe that he is. And one of the things that you just mentioned, I think makes him a very, very good first choice for president. As a pediatric neurosurgeon, he had to put together a team. He had to put together anesthesiologists, nurse anesthesiologists, cardiologists, vascular surgeons. He had to assemble the best of the best from around the country each and every time he stepped into a surgical unit. Well, that's the same thing a president has to do. A president doesn't have to know everything. And any candidate who's running for president who claims to know everything is a dangerous man who's bordering on megalomania. So a president needs to be willing to reach out to people who are smarter than him in their individual spheres of influence, bring them into his cabinet so that when he sits down, everybody in that room is smarter because everyone in that room has an area of expertise that no one else in that room can touch. And because of his years of experience in putting together those exceptional surgical teams, I believe that Dr. Ben Carson would use that same skill in putting together a cabinet for the United States of America that would be unparalleled.
When was the last time you remember a president being referred to as a pussy?
That was a first.
That was a first. So how is it that Obama has greater capability for dealing with foreign policy than Ben? I mean, I'm not a Ben Carson fan, and you know that. And we've had this conversation. But Ben Carson is far and away a better commander-in-chief on his days off from golfing and sleeping than certainly Barack Obama is on any day that he's in the Oval Office.
You get no argument from me. It's really funny that, in my opinion, I think Barack Obama has achieved, an honor that is absolutely incredible. He is in my opinion, the absolute worst president the United States has ever had. He has surpassed Carter. He has surpassed everyone in his race to the bottom.
His race to the bottom. Now, final question for you tonight, and I thank you so much for staying with us on this very special night of coverage regarding William Porter in Baltimore. But recently, um, there is a story about church donations, and that the IRS has proposed that churches and other nonprofits gather the Social Security numbers of individuals who are donors. And they must provide a Social Security number for anyone who has spent more than $250 in 1 year at any nonprofit entity. Donated more than $250. That's an Obama administration proposal. And I want to ask you, sir, because I had to speak tonight on this particular matter before a congregation which I attend, and people don't understand it the way I do. At one time, donations were dollar for dollar. Today, they're 40 cents on the dollar. And at one time, you took the grain of salt opinion of the person who donated the money. Now, churches have to employ HR departments to handle the 1099s and other forms for individual donors. And now people are talking about collecting Social Security numbers, which will make individuals not want to either give money or give a Social Security number if they do give money, which may reduce the amount of money that people give to a church. Is this a dastardly approach for the government to circumvent churches and to virtually take the place of the church secularizing America?
Well, what this is just another example of Big Brother stepping into a process and creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. Now, understand, they already are talking about using the IRS, the tax rolls, as a way to infringe persons' Second Amendment rights. So now you have the federal government stepping in to the charitable giving. And what that's going to do is going to open up more people to audits.
Yes.
It's going to create more situations for persons to run afoul of the IRS. And then it's going to give the federal government the ability to then restrict that person's constitutional rights based upon running afoul of the Internal Revenue Service. Now, this is dictatorial, Big Brother, socialist, fascist nonsense. And people really need to understand that there is an organized effort to infringe upon the constitutional rights of the citizens of this country in an attempt to create a Big Brother state. And if we don't wake up, it's going to be too late.
Now, there's a question out of the chat room, and the question is, will this apply to mosque and other Islamic charities? Now, quote unquote, it's supposed to, but really, I don't think so.
Because nothing applies to mosques anymore.
There you go.
The Islamists in the church can get away with murder. There was that town in the Midwest that stupidly elected a majority Muslim city council. And since that council has been elected, what they do now is they broadcast the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day throughout the city. The council has appropriated, I think, $200 million to build an Islamic center. Understand that an Islamic center is nothing more than a mosque. But yet and still, if a city council in the United States of America set aside $200 million to build a Christian center, you would have all of these separation of church and state morons hopping up and down, yelling and screaming, saying you can't do that, but you're going to let the Islamists do it and build a mosque.
Let me get
so
this.
No, the laws in this country don't apply to Muslims.
There you go. Let me get this straight now. It's okay for Al Gore to take millions of dollars for climate change without any concerns from who donates it to him. It's okay for Black Lives Matter to take millions of dollars for George Soros without having to worry about who gave it to him exactly in terms of Social Security numbers. But Reverend Leroy, who's preaching at the First Baptist on the shopping mall that's been deserted for 30 years in his neighborhood, now he's got to go out and he's got to collect every one of his congregants' Social Security numbers and try to keep them safe on his computer at his church. Does that bode well?
No, and God help her if he preaches the true and unadulterated gospel of Jesus Christ and says anything about Islamists and homosexuals.
Oh!
Then they're going to come after him for hate speech and try to take his nonprofit status.
Oh, and wouldn't that mean that everyone who had their Social Security number filed with him is also subject to the same rule of hate crime because they agreed?
Well, not only that, potentially every dollar they contributed to that church would then no longer be considered a charitable contribution, and then the IRS to go after them for fraud on their taxes.
Bingo. Ladies and gentlemen.
Do you see how insidious this is?
Ladies and gentlemen, and for you down low liberal listeners who tuned in tonight about the Baltimore thing and about the proposal Bible study and all that, we're going to get to that. But there is I know you're listening here and you think that we hate Obama. It's not about hating Obama. It's about understanding that the same proposal came out in 2009 during the Obama administration, and GAO rejected that regulation, saying that it was unconstitutional. Ladies and gentlemen, they are not after doing something good to help your church do a better job at keeping files. They are coming after you and your church and after your faith. They're after you. Trust me on this one.
Yes. No, they absolutely. If anyone doesn't believe that there's a war on Christianity, they clearly have been living in a cave somewhere, and they're just not paying attention. There is an absolute war on the Christian faith in this country.
And some of your preachers, some of your preachers out there are leading that particular war, and they don't mind throwing you to the wolves. Pastor Chittams, can you tell everybody how they can get in contact with you?
Again, social media of RJ Chittams Senior, RJ CHITTAMS SR, and also email at chittams@dcgop.com. But before I go, I want to set you off on a tangent. It's been reported here in the District of Columbia that the former chair of Muriel Bowser's Fresh Pack, remember the PAC?
Yeah.
And solicited money from all the companies to support the man's agenda?
Yes.
It seems as though the chairman of Fresh Pack is also a paid lobbyist for the Exelon Corporation. The person who is heading the Political Action Committee to raise money for the mayor.
Oh, this is fresh.
Also a paid lobbyist for the Exelon Corporation, which is currently trying to take over Pepco and completely screw DC payrayers in the process.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't like to get involved in the Exelon Pepco thing because I believe that the capitalists need to take care of their own business without the intervention of government. But since government is intervening in this particular fashion, I am going to tell you right now, where there is smoke, there is fire. This corruption is intolerable. It is simply intolerable. And Vincent Gray, I would tell you, maybe you were not released by God to do a mayoralship or to run against Yvette Alexander or Vincent Orange in the city council. Maybe it's time for you to start your own organization to investigate corruption in the D.C. government, and you might want to start with the mayor's office in Fresh Pack. Just saying.
Machin went after Vincent Gray. I want to know if the Dakota Attorney General is going to go after Muriel.
Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be?
There's enough smoke there.
There's a whole lot of smoke there, and I mean, for the goal of it all, that there's pay to play, and these are the same individuals that will turn to you and say that it's the Republicans' fault for all of the problems in the city. No, you are a corrupt, infantile, Philistine group who have decided to maraud over your people rather than serve them as constituent statesmen. Ladies and gentlemen, those individuals, and listen, I am not picking on Muriel Bowser because I don't like her. It has nothing to do with like. I'm already married. I don't have to like one woman. It's about corruption, people. Where there is corruption, there is also a system of criminal acceptance. Ladies and gentlemen, the Exelon Pepco deal needs to be truly investigated. And I'm not saying that because I'm for it or against it, simply that where there is smoke, there is fire. And when there is a fresh packed person who is a lobbyist, okay, for Exelon, for a pay-for-play deal, ladies and gentlemen, where's the FBI on this one? Forget the terrorist thing. This is an easy slam dunk case right here.
You know what, Ken? It's just so predictable. I just knew how to get you out.
Okay, this is intolerable. Because people come to me and they say, Ken, you just say mean things about Democrats because you hate them as a person. I don't have anything to do with you as a person. I could care less. I sleep with one woman, and her name is Miss Peaches, Miss Biggs. All right? So she's the only person I gotta like. The bottom line is when you hire someone to be your representative in office, and they decide that they would prefer to keep their position by corrupt means, you don't have any longer someone who is serving you. You have someone who is abusing you. And you need to investigate them, not because they're Democrats, not because they're Republicans, but because they are corrupt. Corrupt people create problems in a system. And when there is a system of corruption, there's a system of injustice. And where there is injustice, there is no peace. No peace, no justice. You all need to investigate. From the FBI to the Department of Justice. Loretta Lynch, you love going into urban cities and investigating people. Try this particular case, because I'm thinking you're going to find a whole lot there. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely.
Ralph, wow, you got me. Ralph Chittams, DC GOP Vice Chairman. Get in contact with him, especially if you're thinking about running for office. You do it before December 31st. How can they do that, sir?
Again, social media, RJ Chittams Sr. Drop me a note. I'll get back to you, ralph.chittams@dcgop.com. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Ken.
Great talking with you, sir. Wow. What a great conversation with the Ralphster. The Kraken has been placed back in his cage. He'll be back next Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I have to do this for my own good. I have to play these things, and they are called commercials. Actually, I do it just to assault the underground professor who's challenging me for the best urban program in America. We're going to fix that.
Chef Quincy's restaurant, and today I'm gonna walk you through some of the meals that we prepare here. So we're making a pizza. We use fresh Italian sausage that they cook here and slice it up. Our pizza dough is in-house made. Our pizza sauce is in-house made. So everything is fresh and ingredient. This is our Thai curry chicken. The sauce is made with coconut milk and the Thai red curry. It is juicy chicken thighs as well as some mixed vegetables, served with jasmine rice and pita bread. So now we're going to prepare our famous blackened tilapia and grits, our fish and grits on the menu. And our meal will be complete. Let me tell you about our infused beef burgers. We keep the spice up just a little bit with our infused sauce. We start off with 80-20 USDA ground chuck ham patty burgers, nice half a pound of burgers, and we're going to grill it to perfection. After I flip the burgers, we add the sauce and let it cook on into the meat just a little bit. We're going to add a little bit of pepper jack cheese to this burger, spice it up a bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to order up the best meal you will ever have. 6339 Allentown Road, Temple Hills, Maryland, 20748 301-449-9000. And on a night like this, which is Sackheads Radio Night, for all of you in SHR Media Live chat roll, all you beautiful people, Dan Butcher's in there, Kale's in there, Ralph's in there, Pastor Shannon Wright's in there, the beautiful, the lovely Mary Brockman, my bouncer's in there, Dave Milner, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is in there, and we got 2 viewers in addition to that. And for all of you at Ustream and Livestream, thank you so much. Stay in the chat roll for the best late night urban conservative talk show in the country. Sackheads Radio, SHR Media. Definitely tune in and listen.
Swipe. Gonna be a right swipe. This thing just shaped his chest hair into a heart. Oh, you stole mine. Right swipe it.
Right swipe, right swipe.
That kind of looks like my sister. It does. But I know she's not.
He's cuddling a kitten. Oh my god, I want to eat their faces.
Oh, she's hot.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh. That's a lollipop. Oh, that is not a lollipop. Left swipe.
Left swipe.
Let's swipe that. Why you gotta swipe it left? Yeah. You gotta swipe it left. Let's swipe that. Why you gotta swipe it left? This is stuff I don't like, so I gotta let's swipe that. Look at you with your shirt off, flexing. You're buff, but you puff. Hashtag perplexing. Yeah, you work out, you're in shape. Okay, I like the 6-pack abs, not the 6-packs a day.
Came across a photo of this green-eyed hottie, whole nine, pretty face, tight waist, nice body. But I just couldn't overlook one small fact.
She smokes like an old man at a racetrack.
This must be some kind of joke. I think you're my type, and I'm not type. What you doing in the telephone? I just left swipe, bye-bye. I just left swipe. Let's swipe that. Why you gotta swipe it left? Yeah. You gotta swipe it left. Let's swipe that. Why you gotta swipe it left? This is stuff I don't like, so I gotta let's swipe that.
Mr. World Traveler, your trips look expensive. Sitting on a mountaintop looking all offensive. I was about to ask, how's the air up there? But based on this pic, I guess guess you don't really care.
Lots of chicks in the pic, not sure which one's you. Them cigarettes are taking y'all from 10s to 2s. And one thing's true about your whole crew, none of you cigarella's gonna be my boo.
Smoking with a tiger?
Let's swipe that.
While you're on a hang glider?
Let's swipe that. Smoking while acting healthy. Let's swipe that.
Smoking all stealthy?
Let's swipe that. Smoking with a duck face. Let's swipe that.
At a monster truck race?
Let's swipe that. Smoking at the prom. Let's swipe that.
Even in a photo bomb?
He don't care. Let's swipe that.
You gotta swipe their lips.
Yeah.
You gotta swipe their
Let's
lips.
swipe that.
You gotta swipe their lips. This is stuff I don't like.